How good is your little brother?
He been playing on my phone. Playing Fortnite on my phone. I made a new account. My name is Top Sky. My name is Hive1Sky21.
On the phone.
Yeah.
I know.
How do you know?
I have my ways.
Damn, can we land late, guys? I'm trying to set up my stream. Can you give me a second?
Land where?
A little late. Like, in the end of the map. Whatever the bus lands late.
Alright, Pleasant then.
Whatever y'all want, I don't care. I like the new black though, but whatever.
I don't even care. Go try hard.
Look, where you going, bro?
I gotta go get me some good loot, so I'm going Lucky Land then.
Bro, I'm going with you, bro, cause...
Alright, just do your thing, guys. Just give me a sec.
I'm going to Lucky Land too.
No,
Oh, stay together. Stay together, guys.
MJ.
Go.
Stay with,
No, let him go. Let him go. Let him go with you guys.
what is it?
Stay close.
Oh shit, I was just gonna go get me some loot, meet back up with y'all. So, but
The other
I
guy.
see there's a squad coming here too. So
The other guy's not even on. Like he's just standing there.
he's setting up his shit real quick.
Yeah, bro.
Oh, I forgot.
Alright, there's people here at Lucky.
Q, I'm gonna land with you, okay?
Hey, I'm finna get a gun and I'm gonna come right to you, look.
Alright.
Can I get a
Tommy,
weapon?
I can kill somebody with that, easily.
I got a flintlock pistol. The only weapon I kind of need is a flintlock pistol.
Bro,
come
I
here. I got an assault rifle.
I got a Tommy.
And I got another assault rifle.
I'm coming, Bug.
Alright. I ain't got no smoke. Stay here.
He loves Tommy. Like, he literally does.
Oh, I see him.
Where you at?
I'm landing on him.
And here we go. Q gets the kill.
Oh,
I'm coming, Q. Cause this kid wanna be messing with you.
Oh, Q! Come kill this nigga. He right there. My dumb ass tried to pull a fucking slurp out.
That stupid little kid.
I believe in y'all. You guys got this.
I know my dumb ass pulled a slurp out.
oh.
Oh, come on.
You got worked.
I'm gonna exit. It's okay.
That was my fault, though. My fault.
And I was going my chocolate load.
What? You gotta do the lot. That nigga was on the other side of the map.
Yeah,
No, he wasn't. He was on the other side of the map.
He kills me first.
I hate leaving matches, alright?
Looks like a let's.
He was on the other side of the map.
Yeah, my bad, bro.
Shut up.
No, you good.
You alright, bro? It wasn't your fault.
That was, yeah, that was.
I told y'all.
Nah, we was good.
Yeah, I gave y'all the info too.
I was good. I was killing everybody over there.
No, I had
No,
dude.
you
Nah.
wasn't, bro. No, you wasn't.
My dumb ass drunk a slurp right in that nigga's face.
Oh, you gave him health?
Nah, like I had my fucking revolver and I didn't have my gun switched up, so I switched over thinking I was shooting him and I was drinking a slurp.
Black. What color
play?
PlayStation control y'all like better, black or white and red? Big.
Let's.
Alright.
It don't matter.
I'm finna ready up.
What?
Are you at your house?
What?
Are you at your house?
No.
At your dad's?
They're out of town. So I brought my game and some clothes over to my dad.
Oh. I forgot.
They went out of town because Kay's dad died. We sneaked attack like 68 enemies. Yeah. Nigga.
Why does my skin color on my socks keep changing? Yeah, what's one that
We're going to Paradise, but I'm going to that spot. So go. You guys should go here.
Wait, no, I'm finna go race cars.
Nah, we're staying together. We're not doing that. We're gonna stay in this range so we can come help each other.
No. No, I'm just kidding.
Everybody land.
Dang, there's a
This
lot
area.
of people.
That's why I told you I land on that side. I can shoot from up here.
it kind of looks like the whole lobby that came here. I'm just saying, babe.
I even got a gun up here.
I got two chests on me. Who wants an airstrike? Cause the airstrikes are good. I found a what?
Oh, there's somebody north of you, Quentin.
Oh, bro, somebody on me, bro.
Yeah, I know.
Here, I'm coming.
I need to get a gun.
I don't even have a good gun.
I don't even have a gun. Oh, now I do.
I got an SMG.
Dang it.
Fuck, I think I was reloading. Don't try to revive. Fight. Don't try to revive, bro. It's not smart. Go fight him. Right there, see? He's just waiting.
Why would you kill yourself, MJ?
I didn't mean to. I was trying to kill the other kid. So he killed me.
Ooh, get low.
We can't start off this trash, y'all.
Yeah, it was terrible.
I wasn't even trying.
Nah, that's not an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't no excuse.
It's 1:50 in the morning.
Bruh. Boogaloo, you know I wasn't trying. Cause I carried you with 7 kills.
Man, I have 4.
Me and my partner carried y'all. Shoot, all I need is a decent partner and we gonna get the dub.
I'm finna put on you guys, I'm finna do sex default probably. I don't know. Dang it! Okay, whatever. I don't care. I'm finna do sex default still. Wait. This is what happened when I team killed my little brother in Fortnite. Oh, I remember I did that. 32 solo squad kills on controllers. If you win Fortnite, my little sister will move into Faye's house. Water slide is Faye's rug? You probably weren't even in Faye's. Shoot. Leaving Faye's house, Faye's rug. Pokemon?
Bro, Cortez was on.
There's this bot trying to hey.
Y'all wanna go Loot Lake or Happy Hill? Where y'all wanna go?
I would rather prefer not going to Happy Hill because of the hot drop.
I'll fuck with the hot drop.
Love the hot drop. And good guns.
I'm going to Destiny. Okay. Bro, why do we always...
I'm taking the southeast corner. The purple marker is.
I usually
Bro,
land
I'm
like
just trying to stick with the
Oh, we land in the same place? Okay. It's fine. We go share.
But I ain't.
Look. Should I go 1% try hard?
Yeah, go 1% try hard.
Alpha just joined the party or something. whoever this is.
Hey, what's up, man?
Alright, I'm going 1% try hard. Oh, I
What's
just
up,
got a combat bet.
Oh, crap, kill.
I'm murking people now.
I see you. Yo, little stupid combat. I'm kidding you. I got a reloader.
Damn, I got a sniper.
Look, I trust you. You want to take my loot out? I'm gonna show you my loot out.
I got you. Hold on.
Well, I ain't gonna take your loot if you show me your loot out. Like, why would I do that? I don't really need your loot. I'm gonna stick bomb you now.
Why you play too much?
Stop.
Look.
Hold on.
Bop.
You gonna pick up my stuff?
You gonna take my ammo? You ain't even think about this car.
What do you mean? I just shot that out the air.
My car.
I'll give you a combat for it.
Yeah, okay.
Respect my phone.
What the fuck?
Give it tough.
What the fuck?
Thank
So
you.
lucky.
Hey, there's a green pump in there.
That's mine. You snipe it, you got it. Oh no, I don't want it.
I'm going for it.
I was saying, if you shoot it out the air, it's yours. You know?
Yeah.
Exactly. MJ, don't take it because it's his.
Oh,
What,
dude,
this?
you know they're taking stuff.
Hey, bro, don't take it. You stupid, bro.
No, you could take the shotgun, bro. You could take that shotgun because I have one. It's all good.
No, just pick it up. Just keep it. Because you don't want it. You got an axe.
That's okay, bro. That's very respectable. I respect that. But I don't mind.
Did you ever listen to Lil Blurry Now I Made It?
Oh,
I did.
Mike Carey if you want.
Now I made it.
Alright, now I'm about to lose.
Now I made it.
Look, come here.
Oh,
Blah, 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 blah.
Look.
boy, I gotta loot. What do you want?
I'm trying to give you some shields. Look.
Yeah,
Say that.
he's just trying to reject the shield.
Cause I'm about to find some shit. Ain't not one of y'all in these houses.
There was some minis over there. You guys? Oh, she was getting on the zip line.
Yo, I got something for you, bro. Gift. Right there.
I
Bruh.
need that. I need that.
I think Rich should get that. He has the lowest health. There you go, bro.
Oh, I'll take that.
No, give that to Rich. Rich, you gotta jump up and get that. Also, don't take it. Give it to the other guy. He has lower health than you. Oh no, you guys are pretty much even. Oh, don't
Wait,
matter.
here. Where is he?
I don't need
You
it.
don't need it anymore. You can take it.
Okay, I'll just drink it.
I should have drank it, but whatever.
A 100 shield, 100 health. I didn't even drink it. Okay, I don't really care to drink it. What? No, bruh.
Why is everybody joining?
That's because we are popping. Don't be upset. Hey, what's up, man?
They want to play creative. That's what they want to play.
Oh, I see. Nah, there's no creative, baby. I don't do anything that doesn't have a record.
Alright, we gonna cook them in some Zone Wars?
Yeah.
You guys can play though. You guys are more than welcome to play. I'm just gonna leave.
It's not best for me and so.
I don't want to control what y'all do. Chat night.
Negative.
Who do you think you mess with, boy? He keeps running. And you missed it again. So, there's a chest in here? Oh, I think I just broke the chest. That's bad that I broke this. Where do you guys want to go?
Oh, there's people here. There's people here.
Where? I'm gonna kill those bots.
Right here.
Bro, we all the way over here somewhere else. Hold on.
Yeah. Go. We can flank them. I'm gonna wait for you. I'm gonna wait for you guys. Okay. I have high ground on them. I'm here. So I'm gonna tell you.
I'm the closest. I need to get Max to build up though.
Now go around the mountain. Take your time. Take your time.
Now
I see them. They coming towards us. They coming towards us. They coming towards us. They right there above.
I'm coming.
You be love like a bus. Hey.
I got a slurp for one of y'all. Who wants a slurp? Which in case?
Bro, just kill him. Oh, I'm getting lasered. God dang it.
Bro, oh my god, bro. And that's his partner. Oh, what are you guys doing? Camping?
No, my fault. Y'all got laser.
The word.
It's only one person over there.
No, it's not just one person over there.
Nuh-uh, there's like 4 people. There's like a whole squad over there. So you can't get mad at them.
They all in there.
Hold on one sec. Yeah, and there's one on high ground on the mountain.
I'm gonna get y'all card. Hold on.
Y'all need a dip.
Oh, bro, not yet. Actually, let's go. He's right, actually. I don't want to leave without you guys.
Bitch! I don't know what my guy is doing.
Oh, he got me on the back.
She don't give me no shade. Hold the heat down, she don't even know wave. Niggas get smoked like cigarette toast. I like a soft kiss and I dig a wet throat. I love when booty bounce like cigarette boats. And it won't quit. Cause her ass don't fit. Real shit. It's a fabulous life. Oh, I be living that. Oh, I be living that. Oh, I be living that. Hey, get your money right. You could be living that. You could be living that. You could be living that. It's a fabulous life. Oh, I be living that. Oh, I be living that. Oh, I be living that. How you living? How you living? How you living? Oh, I be living fabulous. Got a rich bitch on the way. That for real though, just like Wanda say. She just wanna rock my world in a Wanda way. I'm sitting at the airport like Andale. First I saw the Luggy with the Louis monogram. Then I saw my baby like a sonogram. On the runway, just me and Bentley. I open doors, you ain't got a G to gent me. I was thinking Nick game, courtside. She put her hand in my pants, I let that door slide. We can get it on, but there's no leg room. No water bed, just a phone with a bedroom. Hey, now you tell me what can top this. Hey, laying on a deck top this. Hey, got two different shades, fabulous thing. One white, one yellow, like stunts, Jackie Chan with it. Bitch, we in the city on that hot shit. Looking for a biddy on that thot shit. Y'all ain't getting money, nigga, stop this. I be round the globe talking high shit. I do my own stunts, Jackie Chan with it. I do my own stunts, Jackie Chan with it. I do my own stunts, Jackie Chan with it. I do my own stunts, Jackie Chan with it. I do my own shit. I don't need 50 niggas to roll with. Full shit. I'm on my dolly, I'm on my bullshit. I do my own shit. Fuck all them niggas I used to roll with. I know you used to see me with niggas, but that's that old shit. Real nigga, quick to pull a fucking trigger. Fat niggas, definition of a real nigga. Fuck nigga, quick to fucking hate nigga. Bitch nigga, definition of a bitch nigga. Now wildin', ready for all the violence. I don't need a nigga jacking that he riding. I got this 4-5, this shit all up on my hip. I blow that shit, now you ain't Bobby Schmurder hat whip. Bitch, we in the city on that hot shit. Looking for a biddy on that thot shit. Y'all ain't getting money, nigga, stop this. I be round the globe talking high shit. I do my own stunts, Jackie Chan with it. I do my own stunts, Jackie Chan with it. I do my own stunts, Jackie Chan with it. I do my own stunts, Jackie Chan with it. Kick around, getting money now, acting funny now. Does she love me, but she only tryna fuck me for the clout. Saw the paddock gon' bust down, tryna run down. Bitch hit me on a touchdown, but I curved it. They be begging me to keep the bitch, but I don't need the bitch. Ray Charles, John Cena shit, I can see the bitch. In the DM, sending naked pics over that bitch. But I send her in the pool, even though I'm rich as shit. It's fucking oh wait, I forgot you can't say that shit. We just gonna start with everything else that start with a Tina. It's fucking Trojan. It's fucking Target. It's fucking.
Word.
Let's go, boys.
Look at the win. Victory Royal.
I'm gonna land here and walk over there. Don't go too far, boys.
No.
Okay, no. I will land with you.
House.
I see a lot of people actually. I'm landing with that.
House.
Right here? House? Okay.
House, yeah.
Copy, house. Probably already landed somewhere else. There's somebody on the roof, bro. There's somebody on the roof, okay? Hit a gun. Hold on, I'm gonna get your car, bro. Don't leave the game. Oh, he was waiting for me outside.
Kill me! Kill me! introduce New York to the beach cruiser. Got 'em putting red and blue strings in their G units. Get groupie love, tell 'em to keep moving. If I got a problem with a bitch, I let Eve do it. Unless she got on the pearl and I can see through it. I don't just let her ride, I give her the keys to it. Me and my bitch lay back in the coupe. I'm moving in the neighborhood, I ain't passing through. I would've been here after Snoop, but I slowed down to show Timberland how to iron a khaki suit.
Hey. Oh, y'all playing creative?
Yo, God King Grateful, can you like and comment on my recent post on Instagram?
Of course. What would you like me to comment on it? Do you want a fire button?
I love this boy energy.
I want a fire button and some hands beat.
I don't know, bro. How many followers you got?
I have 711.
But you gotta add me if I give you this comment.
But I'm a bum. Why would you want to add me?
No, you gotta add me. I'm saying.
I mean on Instagram or on Fortnite?
No, on Instagram. I don't give a fuck about Fortnite. I was gonna play random squads. I thought you guys are gonna play squads, but creative is not really the way for me. But I'm still gonna do this for you.
No,
What's your name?
Squad.
Okay, wavy. What's your name?
It's exactly my
Next time.
Call me Lobby
Oh my god.
What do you mean,
or
bro?
BBG Lube.
Yeah.
Yeah, BBG Lou.
Okay, I'm sorry. There's two people with a thing on, so I can't tell. BG.
Hey, Luby, look at my story.
Ooh. Fufu EJ.
Loobster?
Yeah.
What's your real Instagram?
That's his real, BBG Lou.
That became my real.
Oh, you got pictures of yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, you want me to bless you, bro?
My boy look cute as
Alright, I got you.
You're a sus.
Alright. Yo, put on squats.
No, I'm not party host. Special?
Oh, I didn't know I
Daddy,
was.
I mean,
Okay.
what the, yo.
There you go, buddy.
Hold up, my dad just called me. Hold on a second. Okay, yeah, I'm back with.
Okay, buddy.
Nah, what do you mean, brother? My dad just called me.
Okay.
Special, hurry
I
up.
had my
What do you mean?
He's
Okay.
ready.
What are you? No, I wasn't. Oh, never mind. Yeah. I see now.
Okay.
look at my story, Luby. I'm gonna beat your
Yo,
ass.
this guy Ratu has the exact same amount of followers. What the hell?
Bro, I'm popping, bro. And I don't even do Fortnite.
Exact same followers. What the?
Luby didn't saw my story. Alright, I'm gonna delete my story then.
What, brother? What?
I'm trying to support you, Luby.
This guy's
Ruby, I only see
Fortnite clip.
7.
You want me to like your pictures? That's what you want? I'm not ready to do that. I don't know you as a person, but you asked me on Fortnite, and I think that's what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah. I know. I said you don't have any Fortnite clips. I was gonna check.
Nah, bro. I have like I was just like, I don't know. I met a lot of people in life. So I know people.
Back up, dude, lobby. What do you tell me to look at? Your story?
My story. Yeah.
Come straight down.
Facebook.
I have.
Then we can hit the block.
I have 6 more days to hit 90 to get 89 followers. You think that's possible?
Why do you have this deadline for yourself?
Because I'm trying to hit 100 followers.
So how do you do it? You play Fortnite and ask people? Or how do you do that?
Wait, what?
No, I'm saying how do you do it? Do you like ask people like how you ask me? What is your technique?
You're the first person I ever asked.
Alright. So now you could ask people more often because like somebody said yes, so why can't the next person say yes? You gotta think like that.
Wait, what's this?
You know? I'm a very optimistic person, bro. I feel like it's all about opening your mouth, bro. Closed mouths don't get fed.
Oh, bro.
Oh, where the fuck y'all landed? Oh, y'all landed at Pleasant?
Okay.
Y'all kidding.
Look at my
The fuck?
My spectator.
I haven't peeped.
Open mouths only for.
I'll be,
What a bag of buns, bro.
spectate me.
Alright, come on, hold up.
Only open mouths for freaking special fatal, bro.
Okay.
Hey. So you guys are all like what? Like in high school?
Bro, I'm only 7 years old.
Can't scroll. This shit still doesn't like record. Oh yeah, I heard. But Lily was clapping cheeks yesterday.
Ninja?
He was clapping
Bobby,
cheeks.
hurry up or I'm not gonna get your card. I can grab a baller and get your card.
I can't. There you go.
Never mind.
I don't even know why people watch me. I'm trash at Fortnite.
What the hell?
They're all the damn grenade launcher. They're actually a baller, so.
What's she going?
Do you know why I don't post Fortnite clips, bro?
Why?
Because I don't have enough followers on Twitch. When I have enough followers, that's when I'm gonna like, you know, ask like
How
people I
many
know.
followers you have on Twitch?
Not enough. I got 74.
Hey, what's his Instagram? Hey, Doctor, what's his Instagram?
Oh, my son went down.
Freaking burst.
Oh, I almost so close to your card. I'm sorry, bro. Where's up my other friend? Special's not even here too. All right.
Why do I have 4 kills? I'm not 4 kills. I have that many kills in.
I body Galax, bro.
So did I. I killed Fear and Galax. Actually, I
So
killed
me and
Galax.
my brother was playing arena duels, and I got in the game with Neon, and then I bought this shit out of the Galax. He was expecting that, to be honest.
Oh fuck! I don't have enough mats.
Oh
I don't
no.
have enough mats. I didn't even look.
I my keyboards. I don't know how to build. No way.
Oh, I gotta get that skin. I forgot about this.
What?
No way
I need to get the skin that Special Fatal has. I like it.
No, I was watching Galax.
You're a bag of them.
That's a bit skinny.
Bro, I play too much keyboard and mouse. I don't even know what I'm doing on control. It's been like 2 hours on keyboard and mouse.
Are you
Wow.
a sus boy, God King?
What you mean, brother?
Can't you stop,
Are you a sus boy?
I don't know what that means. You should define. I don't want to look this up, so tell me what it means. Oh, I see. I feel like
Sus means gay, son.
that's not like something that's like something. I feel like, how do I explain this? Because I have gay friends, I feel like that's like an offensive question to ask. You know?
How, man, I ain't gonna say shit about it.
No, I'm really serious. Like I know it's like people joke about it, but like I don't because I have friends. Like you know, and, like I feel like it's not cool. So like I don't do that. So I don't want to qualify your thing with an answer.
I bought a bag of bum.
You're a bag of buns.
My skin better than all y'all.
Oh, you want to bet? Do you want to bet?
Bad.
My skin's better than all of yours.
Ooh, I want that
Fatal,
skin.
you're a bag of buns, bro.
Oh, yours is fire. That skin is actually fire. I was trying to buy that. I hope it comes back out on Christmas. His skin is straight fire. I've been trying to get that. I'll pay 20 for that. Easy.
For real.
That's tough.
My skin better than all y'all. Look.
Oh, yo, Grateful, what ethnicity are you? I can't tell.
Who you talking to me?
Bag of bums.
Yeah,
What you call me?
Grateful.
It's Ratul.
Oh my god. A little bag of buns.
Yeah.
Your Fortnite gamer tag.
Yeah, it says Rasul.
It still says Ratul on it, bro.
Oh, what
At the end. Look at the end of the name. This is Ratul.
Oh,
It says God King Ratul. I'm pretty
Yeah. It says my name. So
sure. Ratul.
hey, buddy, we're not talking about this ever again, okay? Okay.
he's like right to. What you asked me though? What was the question?
What ethnicity are you?
Oh, I'm from Bangladesh. I'm Asian.
So is that Arab?
That's not Arab, dude. But like, they are predominantly Muslim though. They will be more classified as ex-Indians and Pakistani people. Wrong?
Bro, why am I not getting new notifications on my PC? On my phone, I get it.
Ooh.
Baby,
Yo, so,
why you so cute?
okay,
Okay. Okay.
What? I'm being honest out here, so I don't know what the fuck y'all talking about.
Well, honestly though, I don't. I'm about to be like every unoriginal piece of crap and do day 1 progression, day 2 progression, and triple edit.
Of what? Fortnite?
Yeah, cause like I switched my keyboard.
What you playing on controller?
Oh my god.
I can't hear you.
He can triple edit on fucking keyboard. He can triple edit on keyboard, none of the
Ubi is literally like so.
I'm what you
My
call
thing
it.
living
Hey, I got somebody in my house.
I'm just chilling up here, you know, with my tongue going in and out when I'm kicking minis. It's kind of weird. I'm a trash.
Like if you ever see the Batman play, that's me, but with bad aim.
right.
Yeah, I slept maybe, you know, like 10 to 3. No way, I see this llama.
No, I'm last.
Market.
It's in the tree. It's sitting in the tree. Come on.
Would you be mad if I yoinked it? Uh-oh.
Oh, I see somebody across from us.
I'm dead.
I see somebody across from us.
I don't know how to build. I don't know how to build. Crack them though.
Come on. He got me by 1 shot. Yes, nice. He was a good shot, boy. Another one right here. Oh, he came to get the kill for his boy.
What a toxic piece of crap.
Yeah, he just wanted to get the kill for his boy. That's smart. That was smart, but now he lied. Make sure you kill him first and leave his boy alive.
Dash.
Fine. Oh, you got the Galaxy skin, bro? Damn, I wish I got that one.
He's rich, dude. He even has Gold Reaper, Renegade, Raider, Recon, Expert, all of them.
No, that's fire, bro. I like that. That's gonna make you a great streamer and shit. That's fire.
That's me, buddy. Libby. Oh, there's somebody in there.
It's called go to the server and log in on your phone. Or log in on your
Yeah, I know. I don't have the phone.
Wait, there's still people there?
Yeah, they're not dead. One left.
force.
He's in the building. Oh, he's outside the window. South 165.
I can tell that kid 1 kill a game. That kid finished so fast. You saw how fast he finished, Bale?
Watch this, ready?
Imagine he makes a ramp and
That man's
Oh, he's done.
what the hell's already got your card?
Well done, boys. Make sure y'all clear.
Don't remove my boy. I'll do my own shit.
I can't even see this damn
dash,
thing.
dash.
Dash? Okay. Damn, I can't do nothing.
I don't want to go to the
Oh, we still got shit on the sky. Fire.
Probably. I'm not playing a game with arenas, bro, so I get better at these.
I'm gonna take it. That's why I was following you. I knew you had a gun.
Libby, this for you, dog. Come in here.
Oh, I don't know. Wait, can I say that around you? Are you gonna take a? Are you gonna get offended?
What?
Like, when we say Willa, like when we like swear, like kind of swear to God, we just
Are you asking me?
yeah.
Bro, I don't care. It's just that I'm streaming, so don't be saying like flagrant stuff about like. Be politically correct, bro. Try your best to be politically correct. Like, don't throw the F word. Don't throw the F bomb out. Yeah. So don't do that, please. That's all I'm asking. You guys could do whatever y'all want. Have your personality.
Are you streaming?
Yeah.
Give
We
me
said
my
don't
gun.
have
Hey, you.
But I'm not nice like you, bro. So I don't have viewers like you.
Hey,
I
hey.
don't get you. I'm gonna bag up on that.
Oh, there's a sniper over there.
You guys even hear me? Like, what?
We can. The ladder's right here, buddy.
So,
The ladder.
we're all just following me.
Who know again?
Oh man, twice? Yeah, what's up? There we go. Ooh, that was stupid.
Dude, what are you doing?
Oh shit, my hand.
Oh, it's a blue bomb, nice. Hey, hold on.
My man has a 10-minute long
Word. Always. You gotta identify yourself, okay? Hold on.
Hey,
I'm gonna play my alert for you. Hold on. You're watching, right?
Fighting people, or y'all just geeking?
We're having fun right now.
Okay.
Hold on, let me run it for you, brother. Ready? Yo, Lube TV, thank you for the follow, bro. I appreciate you. Welcome to the family.
What's the shirt?
The bottom behind
Hey, nigga, what's the shirt?
Yeah.
you. How adorbs.
You like it, right? Yeah, I'm trying to take that shit off. Cause it really fucks up. I gotta look at it.
Hey, nigga, what's the switch? What's his switch, Libby?
No, I can take off. This is gamer tag without the PUL.
Yeah. Word. There you go.
Does anybody want a damn scar?
Oh, me. You're dropping one. Nice.
You didn't pick it up earlier, and I called your name like 40 times, and you're like, what?
I apologize. It's cause like you see how on my stream there's music playing? So like I don't, my audio is not that high for that. Hold on. And then I gotta do one for you too, bro. You watching? Ready? Ready? Hold on.
I don't even hablo.
Hold on. Where's watching? Ready? Hey, thanks for the follow, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you. Welcome to the family. Yeah.
I love this boy King's energy, bro.
Y'all better carry me before I go to sleep, alright?
Oh, it's on my right up there.
Oh, no.
7.
Watch this, Blue. Watch this. Energy right here. Shit. Why?
I cracked.
Fuck out of here, boy. There.
Yo, I just got knocked. Okay, face way.
Doesn't do that. That you killing fucking video?
Yes, bro.
Oh, they're coming from east. They're coming from east.
How do you have this much math?
Okay.
You want the gun? Yeah, they're gonna come for their boy's card though, for sure.
Yeah, me and Libby.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're here. Oh, they have the builds. They have the builds here though. We have to change their walls.
Just landed.
Watch it. Watch it.
Bro, I had aim assist off. 41 on Bush.
Oh, he went up.
They don't want these lazy. I'm pushing that for sure.
I don't know if they're coming back around though. That's what I'm worried about.
Here, back up. I feel so sad at this game.
Ah, Libby.
Oh my god, love me.
Do I need to pull up and carry you guys or something? Kidding.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'm coming, bro. Give me a second.
Hey, good.
Where we going?
Somebody's still here.
Somebody right here.
But a laser guy. Oh, I got lasered.
Lou got later.
I have 0 mass.
Oh, I just ran out of mats right now. Somebody under us. You hear him?
Just come over here, just get that kid.
He's right here, he's right here, he's on me, he's on me, he's on me.
44, 42, 4. Ooh, there's a kid just landed on me. I don't even know where he came from.
Back, die.
Dude, shield. I gave him one.
I need my fucking method.
My aim is cracked, but I don't know how to build right now. What the hell is this?
Hit a kid for 42 twice.
I hit somebody with something. I hit somebody with my cat. He over there. I hit him for 150. They do it. No offense. They do a dick.
Distract.
Oh
I'm
no.
with the hard. I'm a hard flank. Distract.
I'm getting beamed already.
Hey, double 88 that guy. Double 88.
Alright. Put the first.
Got him.
You know what I did instead? I stayed and I waited for that guy and I popped him. Then his boy came, took the card.
Oh shit, I'm dead.
That's 0 mass.
I don't get my match, literally. All the way down. My lips all the way down.
Got one, like they're white, like 8 HP I think.
Hey, Libby, go all the way down.
Ooh. What's he trying over here? Beam him. Yeah, good shot.
I'm fat.
Nice, boys.
I need
Can
to
you
try
get
this.
the res? But it's not possible for.
If we go to Snobby real quick.
Yeah, you should do it. I think your chances are better. You should definitely do it. It's gonna be a 3-on-3 then. I would 100% do it if I were you. Let's go to strategy. And he's worth the res.
Wait, is Libby
What a
getting shot?
bag of punch. What a bag of punch. I got him. I think.
Oh, they're hitting him. Oh shit.
I don't know how to
There's no
build.
breaking up.
I hit him 90.
Okay, I
I
can't.
don't know how to build anymore.
Bro, I cannot edit.
I'm top here. He's like behind you too. There's one behind you too. Yep. Okay. Ooh, what a shot, bro. That was clean.
You hit?
Yeah.
The clean hit. Oh.
Watch this no scope.
Yeah. Help him give him pressure. Help him pressure them. There's 2 of them. Help him pressure. Same guy. Mark it for him.
I hit him
Oh
for 88.
shit.
I'm dead. If you don't help, I'm dead.
You gotta help him, bro.
Hold on. I just got 88 dinged.
Oh yeah, Ward. He got dinged.
Don't even know how to build anymore.
I'm bad, dude. I cannot see with this fucking skin, dude.
What do you mean?
The only thing I like about it is the battling.
You can't see with the skin. What the fuck does that mean?
It blocks the screen too much, but
So big.
Oh, they here, bro. They here. Nah, don't do that. Oh, build around it. Build around the place.
go to circle.
I know. Dude, I gotta fight them. I don't know how to build. So I'm doesn't like it.
Yeah, they're watching.
God, you're so bad.
Puna Fortnite. Let's look at it. Let's...
Kill by the way.
The guy that killed you? That's usually how it goes.
Unfreaking kill. Bag of buns. Hey, lucky I can. I don't know how to build at all.
So you said you were on keyboard now? That's
No,
good though.
I just switched my keyboard.
It's not bad. Your edits are clean.
I was bent on keyboard and mouse. I just switched my keybind, so I don't know how to build at all.
Like,
Okay.
literally, like, the best players I know.
What do you have all your comfortable buttons for?
See, like, I wanna.
You get what I'm trying to ask you?
I don't know.
Like as in like your finger range, the ones that are like the closest range that you hit easy. What do you have those as? Like guns, or do you have it as like actions? Builds? Okay, interesting.
Build. I have. Yeah, the build edits.
Okay. What kind of mouse you got?
I got a glorious Model O.
I don't know what the fuck that is. How many buttons there are? That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm trying to ask. Like on your mouse. 6, interesting. My brother has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, he has 5.
What skin should I wear, bro?
Oh, let me change my skin.
I don't even know why you bought that skin, Lobby.
Wow, I do the dash shit, so I should have just bought it. I did a dash on Luby.
You're a vagabond.
Bro, we
I did the-
collabed.
Trash at this game. I don't know why y'all be capping so hard.
How?
So stop pickaxing.
My boy, I have 100.
Look at stop buying skins. This Fortnite get dead as hell. Not really. Wait, Minoi?
Go side.
Where y'all trying to...
Ow. Stop. Stop, Luby.
That's not me, you vagabond.
It is.
God, that is not me, bro.
Say Walla. Where the
How
hell
am I
is
gonna
it?
talk and whistle at the same time? Like,
I know that's what I'm saying. I know Alan is there.
I can't even whistle, so it's not me.
I'm gonna go to log.
Lama.
Oh, nice. Yo, land outside of it and shoot the guy that tries to get the llama.
Like, go on the llama, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. That's an easy 1 kill, because somebody's gonna land on that. Oh, somebody landed here. Fuck.
Take that, Luby. Take that.
bro. Oh my god,
I got him trapped. I forgot them. That's on him. Oh shit.
bro. What is this game? Am I?
They say you're getting off.
I just got airstrike.
That's fucking bullshit.
Damn. Face way in this bitch. Face way. Sorry, right? Yeah, I was driving this Oh my
This
god,
life.
who is this dude? This one of my fucking friends, dog, on God.
This is really life.
Hell, bro.
Who's modsboy.com? You got a website, bro? Who's me?
Yes, porn center.
That's funny.
That used to be my gamer tag, but I changed it.
Oh, interesting.
I'm gonna say, who the hell is Mom Boy? Man, Libby, I'm gonna call Libby saying, hey, yo, cutie, get your ass.
You guys still trying to play? Or y'all gonna do your own thing? Oh,
I'm gonna just do my own thing. I'm about to get off anyways.
alright. Tato, what you doing?
I can add you. We can play later on once I get back on. Are you down?
Alright.
see.
Yeah. The dash is digi, the schedule busy. My head in a hoodie, my shorty a goodie. My cousins are crazy, my cousins like boogie. Life is amazing, it is what it should be. Been here for 10, but I feel like a rookie. I tell her look up, cause it's snowing in Tootsies. But for 3 years, man, you can't even book me. Me and Lil Baby, the shit going crazy. Weezy produced it, and Weezy F made me, and she held it down, so she got a Mercedes. Young Money Records, the Army, the Navy. They ran me 10,000, I threw it like Brady. The foreign is yellow like Tracy and Katie. I trusted my niggas, they never betray me. Met all these niggas, they sweeter than Sadie. When I started out, I just took what they gave me. Did all the favors, they never repay me. It worked in my favor, cause nobody said
Brand new whip, got no keys. Tell them my clothes, no stops, please. Soon as I look, you can go leave. Got M's in the bank, like yes, indeed. I got him waiting and watching what he gon' do. Tryna be what I do, tryna steal my money. Same place like a bitch.
Here's one go.
Okay, where we go?
Like that. For the gold
Yeah,
spot.
I kinda care now. Why
Okay.
would we go all the way to Lucky?
Okay, let's go to.
Ah, it's fine. I already started gliding there. It's
Oh, okay. It's gold, that's why. Hear that blue burst SMG? I like that a lot.
Lama lama.
Oh, what the fuck? Even the AC on is fucking hot. Yeah, I'm getting shot at. Over there. I'm coming, I'm coming. Much birdie. I got a quiet SMG.
There's a team in the slip shade. Oh fuck. Thank So
you.
you guys aren't gonna res me? Yellow? Hey, I'm leaving then.
Oh, don't go, don't go, don't go, don't go, don't go.
I'm fucking done.
Where are you? Where's Daddy's hole? Oh, she's right there. I got you. He's gonna come get you. I'm gonna go help. Right here, it's on me. Oh fuck, it's two of them. I didn't see two.
Yo, GG's.
GG's, bro. Good shit. Hmm? Mm-mm. I should have attacked him. I didn't know there was a second person. What? Oh, I see. I could get on the high ground. I didn't even think about that. What? 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 What kind? Why? To get more viewers? To who? What kind of, like, for, okay, so what's he giving away? What? Yeah, he wants more views. That's the whole point, bro. No. That too, yeah, there's a lot of, they're deductibles, yep, exactly. He's a very smart guy. You're intelligent for thinking about that. It's not a joke, it's a real thing. I'm not being mean. I'm not saying, and I'm not judging him for it either, but like, I just know what it's for. You could tell him. 1,000 iPhone XS, this dude is insane. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's gonna make mad bread. Tifu should do the same thing. But Ninja has mad income though. What? What? What website? What? Just happened right now? Oh, you're a genius. I love it. Ninja's a smart ass man. He's gonna give you how much? 2 million, you said? He's giving away 2 million, and he's making like what? He's a genius. He makes hella bread. Children love donating to him. They get their parents' paycheck and give them to money. Oh, it's a great investment. This is better than buying a car. That has. Give it away. I respect it. Close the doors, please. I don't know why they're both open. It was pretty flagrant. Oh, good. Super. How much you Apex?
Yo. Skin.
What?
I'm trying to get the last outfit for this skin.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing, man.
What makes you happy, brother?
Where I marked it. I didn't go here because it's like a good spot. Oh, that combat. You taking that combat?
Bro, you got, oh, whatever. You did ask me. There's no autonomy.
Yeah, you want it back?
Okay. What about something else?
I tried to ask. I think I got one for you anyways.
See?
Yeah.
Got a gift to get, bro.
I got one for you.
Yeah, wavy. The blue combat?
He will. Yeah, I'm marked man. God King, I got your chojo.
Yeah, I'm pulling up, but that's why I don't even care about taking out damage down.
I have another combat for somebody. Oh God. Another combat?
Can I get the chug jug, or you gonna take it? I took it already.
Not up.
Oh, I'll spill.
Rotate to the diner.
Down. You should use the pressure plant geyser to go to the diner. Oh,
I'm ready. Yeah.
Right, okay. I'm gonna take the chug jug and come, bro.
One second,
look
you
how-
unloaded here.
Look how many freaking things are here. There's 3
Combats?
combats, yeah.
No, that's ridiculous.
No one landed here. There's a slurp here. Carry. And an extra
can
blue
carry.
AR.
I'll go get the blue AR and I'll carry, I guess. Man, I wish you could still split redeploy.
Yeah, they will not do that.
Like
So broken though.
when it first came out, you could, but now that I guess they changed it.
That was a really long time ago.
Yeah, no, I'm saying no. Even when it was available, it was so broken. They just said fuck it and then put redeploy like no matter what. That was in the game for like a month or so. That slurp is still right there.
For me, redeploy is broken just at endgame.
Kita? Mau kita kau tahu? Kami harus sama-sama kita lagi kau.
What are you talking about, bro? There's a 50 pro right here.
I'll carry. I might as well just put it over.
Someone landed here, but
I'm carrying medkits and big pods, I guess.
there's a launch for somebody right here. This is unloaded. We can go to solid team.
Yes. I don't think anybody came here.
No one did. I thought someone did.
I tried a deagle shot.
Where? Yep, southeast.
That's me. Cheering right now.
No,
Oh no, I see people. I see people.
there's people. Picking up this launch. Wait, do you have redeploy or did you place a launch pad? Please.
I'm gonna break that.
Holy. One dude up there is one hit. Holy. I don't heal him. Hey, there's people on the drone. One on.
Let me reload. Give me a sec. We got people here. I am.
Up. Whoa. The hell? No, dog.
Got him.
Y'all try to run
Oh, good shit.
Y'all try
Oh,
to
my
run
bad.
Dusty and Rez. Doesn't that do the best?
Yeah, I got a launch pad. Wanna use it?
Yeah, go Dusty and Rez. No, Dusty, dog.
Yeah, but. Oh, I used both? Damn. Yeah, they're gonna follow me.
You got any loot you can drop for me? Dog, I've got to hit him once.
Oh, he saw me.
And,
Be right there, boys. Where's they
Fine. Yeah, he's in the back of me. With a purple scout trooper. You get the homie's card, bro? You get my card? Alright.
His teammates right here, I have to cut them off.
Okay. Good thing, bro. No pressure.
His teammates like right in front of him.
Man. Go to the sky, bro. Got dip, you got dip.
5 minis right here.
The storm is intense. Just made it, you're one shot. How'd that guy leave?
I don't know.
What's the point? No, he needs help, bro. Apex.
So?
I think there's somebody else there. Or am I bugging? Wait, you got somebody on him. Now Apex needs help.
I'm good, bro.
No, you good? Okay. Oh,
Well, that's the best. I love
that's the best kind of. That's the best kind of fall, bro. I love it.
you missed my switch.
6 kills and then you get that. I love it.
Hey, bro, have a good night.
Look at that, bro.
Just completely bodied that. Uber, you missed the fucking stream by like a half a second. Fucking dumbass shit, bro.
Fuck.
Trigger finger itch, palms itching too. We back to back and ghosts, playing pick-a-boo. We went the world with sauce, over a brick or two. So 400 keys.
Yo, so
Good.
sorry. Yo, JC, you got a mic?
Yo, JC, why you doing this, bro? That's pretty selfish. That's for your challenges, then why don't you play by yourself?
We're gonna get you reboot, bro. I'm gonna get it.
It's alright, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry.
How did this kid land on me? He already had his gun. Like,
Got you, bro.
Oh, nice, nice, nice. That was fire.
Watch it. Watch me. Watch my back.
He's upstairs, he's upstairs, he's upstairs. He's right, he's right, he's right. He's so dumb, he's so dumb, he's so dumb. Kill him. I'm gonna get his gun. I his gun, bro. I'm sorry. His friend is here, right here.
Medkit. I'll fight. You say.
No. We're gonna fight together.
Oh man, I hit him for 18, 13, 12.
Oh no, I got one shot.
If I can like do some damage with like an actual weapon.
The boys are right here. Oh no, they got other people. They got other people on them.
Oh my god, my teammate.
We're not even here, bro.
See you later, boy.
GG, bro. Good game.
Yeah, here, I'll go ahead to charge. Have a good rest of your night, bro.
You too, man. Very polite.
I'll have to have a friend request. Saying why, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you gotta love it. Oh, you gotta love it. Bottom of it. Someone to send me something. Why you think I got my head in the clouds? The game is all mine and I'm like, they all contested. Now and out to shoot me on these niggas all in question. Trying to decide what direction I should go towards. Some nights I wish I could go back and not to change shit, just to feel it. Longevity, wonder how long the check will be. Forever if I stay where I go. I speak on this generation, but can't change it alone. You should have kept it inside, oh you tried it, so childish, calling my name on a world stage. You need to be not your girl's age. My career's like a house. Guess it's understandable, man. Oh, you gotta love it. You gotta share. I know rappers
I'm on my way, bro. Don't leave.
guess they need the attention. I remember when it used to be music that did it. But then again, times have changed, man. Who are we kidding? I'm managed by my friends that I grew up with. I'd rather get a 15% than I fuck with. If me and Future hadn't made it with this rapping, we probably would be silicone trying to get our billions on. But here we are. Crazy this year. Fucking with my image, I was trying to reach the youth so I could save them this year. Fuck it, I guess I got
Damn, that was bad.
And I heard someone say something that stuck with me a lot. About how we need
I knew it was gonna be.
nobody looking out for
I'm back.
Maybe we should try
Some
to
position.
help somebody or be somebody instead of being somebody that makes the news so everybody can tweet about it. And then they start to RP about it. And 4 weeks later, nobody even speaks about it. Damn, I just had to say my piece about it. Oh, you gotta love it. But they scared of the truth, so back to me showing out in public, that's the hottest subject. I've been whipping Mercedes, a nigga trying to budget. I gotta make it back to Memphis to check on my cousins. Shout out to Ashley, Taja, Bianca, Julia, Erica, Southern America. Part of my heritage, part of my arrogance, part of my hair again. That's that comeback flow, comeback flow. Once I started appearing, I'm with a girl who ass is so big that's partly and fuck your discussions and fuck all the judgment. Your content so aggressive lately, what's irking you? Shit is getting so personal in your verses too. I wanna prove that I'm number one over all these niggas. Being number two is just
It was good, boys.
my city dictated.
Oh, yo, what's up, God? We just got into a match.
Nah, it's all good. I just saw you guys join me. It's all good.
It's okay.
You do your thing. I'm gonna like fuck with my settings a little bit. I wanna change something up. So it's all good.
Oh, easy claps. Let's drop the 40 ball.
Like, what, did you see my emblem on my shirt?
I did.
Did you see the emblem on my shirt?
The salty thing.
Hell yeah, that's what these kids are about to be. I cop up some kids.
Imagine this fake do the fake floss on just to piss them off.
Clearance so floss looking ass.
Sick one.
Hell yeah. I'm coming, bro.
You're dead.
Here, I'm coming.
You're dead. You're literally. I'm pickaxing you. I don't care. No matter what, I'm gonna pickaxe you.
I'm coming with you.
Pickaxe him. Where'd he go? He's literally one shot. You're an idiot. You're mad. You're so mad.
Ow! Ow!
Oh, oh my god! If they finish, they're the biggest gays in the game.
They're coming. He's coming on your side. Nice.
Yo, this guy just has the best aim in the game. Holy shit!
Oh my fucking god, bro! What the fuck? Yo, boys, I'm about to get some drink.
Word, I need a couple minutes.
Oh?
I also need a couple minutes. I'm doing something. If you guys finished. 118.2. 118.2.
She go spot me designer. She want give me the vagina. Everything I from London, Bond Street. Nothing ever come from China. I mean, pop up, me tag them. My new Benz, it
1 sec.
them. Every day me a
Take what you need, bro. Take
Thank
all
you,
the time you need.
appreciate you. 313.
Not really. You better hurry the fuck up, bro. Bitch, slap you.
1313. I got you.
He said I appreciate.
What is this banner supposed to be?
No fucking clue.
You know I'm buzzing like a beehive. We still bumping to that C5. Fendi prints pa my knee highs.
Oh hell yeah, this is hot. Let me put this on real quick.
Fierce pretty me a problem. Everything from Paris, Milan, straight
Hell yeah.
when I grab them. Platinum plaques in my office.
My screen looks like some fucking dumpling's head ass.
I don't fuck with the middleman, low ranks. I'ma only sleep with the bosses. Swimming to swimming like beach.
This looks so wrong.
Like teach. Like the dick good when my man reach. Now your boyfriend want try peace. I see him so he do it.
Here, doggy. Looking at him.
Head ass.
What's it look like when I just change them all? Guys, look at my emblem. What does it look like?
Fucking trash can or something falling out of it.
No, no. What color is the background? And fuck you, hey girls. It's XY. Oh yeah, brother. Wait. Oh hell no. Listen, boys, I'm tired. I got like hella shit wrong with me. I can't even control myself. Oh shit, I wasn't ready. I thought I was ready.
Oh fuck.
Me.
Nice.
Daddy.
Kid, you're 12. You're 12. You're 12. Stop. FBI's about to open up. Like guys, like
PBI ship.
Oni-chan.
Head ass.
Konnichiwa. Oni-chan. Oni-chan.
Head ass.
Yo, why y'all doing this anime shit?
Because it's fucking funny.
Yeah, bro. Who actually watches anime? I watch one.
I watch mad anime, bro. I love anime.
Hell yeah,
It's
I
fire.
fucking love anime.
You can't do what you can't do what anime does on regular TV.
I finished Bleach. I finished Attack on Titans. Like,
Nah, you gotta watch Demon Slayer, bro. That shit is crack.
I've seen like
It's beautiful. It's
I've seen
beautiful
most
art.
of it. I've seen most of it.
Okay. That shit crack, bro.
Tokyo Ghoul's the shit. I don't care what no one says.
What? Oh, I have not seen that. I've never seen that. Tokyo Ghoul, I haven't seen that yet. But I'm a big Naruto fan. I like One Piece.
Hell yeah.
I watch a lot of animes actually.
Oh, yeah.
Naruto's the shit. I don't care what no one says. I was watching it yesterday.
Bitch, I'm about to Naruto right into fucking area.
That's actually Naruto's my favorite character. I just like what he's about.
Bro, when he runs, I get hard.
Alright. Let's slow it down a little bit.
Oh shit, wait, my mic was on mute. My bad.
Come on. You guys any minis here?
Fuck you. I got 2 revolvers, bro.
I never land here, so I have no idea.
I'm about to pistol whip somebody.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Let me
god.
blast him. You got him? Yeah, I got something for you.
I need help. I need help right now.
Oh, no. I'm taking a chug jug. Oh no, loop, take this. Oh no. Alright, I'm coming. We're not gonna take it now.
They finished their gate. They finished their gate. Swear to God, they finished their gate.
Oh,
The hit a small team in the fucking world.
oh, their boys are coming.
That's 25 health.
Want me to pickaxe them? Not. I pickaxe them. Dude. I'm getting DM'd by Banana. He's reviving right here, right above you. He's reviving. 3, 2.
Pistol whip chin ass.
I pickaxed him for you. Because he finished as you were gay.
Wrong email. I'm sorry.
Yo, where's my scar? Did I have a scar? The fuck? Where the fuck did I drop my scar? Oh, I know where I dropped it.
Yeah, do you still have that chug?
Where's the scar? Here?
We need to find the scar.
No, it was my scar. I dropped it when I changed weapons.
Yeah, sure.
I'm dead ass, bro. What the fuck? Think I'm dirty like that? Looking for it. Oh, here. Take the chug, bro. Oh. Damn, I missed. Hey, let's go. You see?
You found the scar?
No, I don't know. I think you got it then.
Yeah, I got a fucking scar already.
It's a purple scar, right? That was my gun.
It's a fucking gray AR.
Oh, somebody got a purple scar because like I picked it up and I don't know where it is.
I go to have a great tack and a great machine gun.
I'm looking for it, but if I find it, I'm keeping it. The fuck?
Where the fuck could I have put it? What other chest did I open? Maybe this one.
They are.
I think it's here.
No.
Yeah, it is. Aha, I got it. Look. I'm gonna show it to you.
I got purple heavy. I'm gonna show it to you. You're a bitch.
Oh, yo, I got blue AR for somebody.
Me.
Anybody wants it?
I don't even have an AR.
Oh no, I got something else. I got something else for you, brother. I think. Hold on, let me see. There's something else up here. No, there isn't. I lied. I was wrong.
Wow.
I was wrong, brother. I'm sorry.
You're just like my dad. He said he's coming back. No.
But that's because he went to the store for a long time, bro. He's gonna come back. He's just getting some milk.
He came back like 8 years later.
He didn't have no milk. He had another brother for you, right?
Had another cigarette.
Hell nah, bro. Guys, I have some great news. My sister's pregnant.
Oh, good shit. Good. Congratulations, bro.
I'm gonna be a fucking father.
I don't understand how that works. I do get it, but I don't want to get it.
Yeah. There was this dude that yelled that in the mall. He's like, my sister's pregnant. I'm gonna be a father. Yo, that's you. That girl's in chat.
Yeah, I got.
It was that trash boy.
I got mini for you and a drum gun when you get out, bro.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not reviving. I don't like him. He's actually trash. I wouldn't revive.
Yeah. So when you get up, I got a mini. I got 2 minis for you, and I got a drum gun. If you want.
I'm fighting.
Are you really? Oh fuck! Hold on. Let me get the drone to come to you. That's the fastest I can come. Give me a sec. Can you mark him? Can you mark him? Where's he at?
Boys, I'm fucking dipping. I'm gone.
Are you actually fighting? Cause I just launched at it over.
Hit me. Fuck.
Hit you from where?
Where's he at?
He hit me from fucking. That thing. He's right under me. He glided right under me. He didn't slip through it. I'm like right behind him.
I'm landing on PP real quick. Get some mats.
I'm like right fucking behind him.
Oh God, can I have that minigun or that number?
Yeah, of course. One sec.
Of course. No.
Just don't like that you broke my mats or whatever.
He's in Mega Mall. He's in Mega Mall.
Give me 1 sec, bro. I'm getting to you right now.
It's inside of Mega Mall. He just landed in. I'm heading to it right now.
Yeah, alright. I'm on my way. Just don't get popped, bro. Please don't get popped. I want us to be alive, all of us. Yeah, I'm coming towards you. I'm moving fast. Got geyser. You can move on him now. I'll land. Move on him first, so he thinks it's just one-on-one. But he's gonna hit my dragon. What?
There's 2 quads.
Give me a mark. I'm in the air, that's why. Oh, I see him. They're down here.
9. 41. I hit him 41. That one. 41 shield. Teammate's over there. Broke his shield. Bro, I hit him for 56 white.
Where's he at?
Broke his shield. Yeah, I just like damaged.
Where the fuck is he? I'm looking for him. Oh, I got him.
He's low.
Yes.
Let me get the kill.
I got somebody else landing here.
There's another guy. Yeah.
He's over here.
I'm going after this kid. Oh my god.
He's in the house. He's in the building right here.
Knock this one. Watch out, there's a trap.
Oh, his homie's coming.
We got him. Did we clear the whole team? Or did you not like...
No, he got knocked. One of them got knocked, so there's one coming for the card. That's why I'm waiting back here. That's why I'm waiting for the card. I'm waiting for him to come.
I heard all of them.
His card is over here, okay? I'm just letting y'all know. So the homie's gonna come over there to revive him.
I'm gonna try to use his bait, trying to see.
Yeah, that's why.
Accident.
He's here?
Accident.
Oh, okay. Nice shot. Okay, let's get out of here.
I got chug splashes.
Oh, wavy. Let's go. Let's hit those. Everybody on him. Everybody on us. Oh, they left? Okay.
Yeah, they were bothering.
Coming.
Oh, they came back, they came back. Oh, no. He just sprayed it? That's funny. Oh, yeah, clowns.
I'm about to smack you the flip flop. Ma'am. Our man's over here smelling like some hot dog water.
Alright, I'm behind you, brother.
You're the thing in the right corner of the ketchup box.
Oh, there's a big fight that went down over here. Oh, I see him, I see him, I see him. Push the same guy, push the same guy. I got him, I got him, I got him.
Oh my fucking god. There's too many first traps where my car is.
Yo, hey, Cross. Hey,
Oh, fuck. Damn. 2 kills.
That gun literally sucks.
6 kills, 7 kills.
Hey, Cross.
What's like
Alright, GG, boys. Look at the first game.
6, 7, and 4 kills? That's bloody bad.
I'm seeing if that girl's one that like has association.
The sun is in my eyes. Woke up and felt the vibe. No matter how hard they try, we never gonna die. I just wanted you to know.
God can't show. I am loco. Nah. I'm sorry, you guys probably don't get it.
Oh, why did you delete the picture of the guy with no net?
Cause that's it wasn't funny.
You laughing at it?
I'm not laughing at that. Back out. Wow. Yo, Hero.
Yeah.
She's probably asleep because she has to wake up in like 10 p.m. and she's gonna be gone for like 3 weeks. Why are there so many defaults?
No, I'm down. Can we go to Snobby instead? Because we're gonna like die on spawn.
2 people can go sloppy. I'm gonna go.
No, that's not smart. We're going to the same place because
That
it's
is
mad.
smart. No, here, Hero can go with me.
Okay, I'm going to Snobby then.
I got a legendary vending machine. Never mind.
Just saying there's like 2 squads up there.
Just saying, I'm running for my life. I'm running for my life. I'm running, bro.
There's people here. There's people by Pink. There's somebody by Bleed.
On my way, on my way.
I'm pretty sure. I saw 2 people land there.
There's people here, there's 2 people.
I'm 1,000, yeah.
Get on me, get on me, get on me.
I'm coming, hold on.
I only have an AR and a revolver.
Oh, I see him. Nice. Good shit. Let his friend come.
I'm doing 28 damage with it.
That happens every day, man.
You brought it back and still.
I don't have a weapon.
I got him. I got a shot on him. Come. Let me.
Get him for 38. 38, dude. This game.
Oh no way! He has like no health left, bro. He has like no health. I'm promising. No, he's right across from me. Don't try to save. Don't try to save. Don't try to res, bro. He's right here. He's right here. Just one shot. There you go. There you go. Don't res. Don't res. He's weak. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I was trying to tell you not to, because like I knew he was gonna try to pull that move.
Bitch ass.
It's okay, we got it. I should have sprayed him. I did a mistake. I flinted him and I didn't get him accurately. Thanks, brother.
We clear it?
Yeah, now we gotta clear a thing up there.
I thought silenced pistols were removed.
Nah, they got it here. Right here.
It's better combat.
Hell yeah. Fucking pumps are amazing.
I got a purple pump. Or purple combo.
I got a flint. I'm good.
You just gotta, bro. You gotta hit. You have to hit like direct body.
Yeah, I got a campfire. I got a campfire on me. Boys, let's go. Campfire time. Just run right over here.
It does 20 because like.
Ready? Get in the box. Get in the box. Everybody get in the box. I turn it on. Oh, loop is good.
Oh, I need that 1 HP. You're a hero. You should. Oh wait, you're already in a clan.
Oh God, come to me. I'm taking another campfire.
Oh, where? Who's talking? Oh, I'm coming.
There's like 30 left in it still. Should be able to get. Oh, that.
Yo, we out, bro. I feel like the circle is deep.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and find a quad. Got a fly.
I got gliders. I'm good. I'm just gonna climb up the mountain and fly.
I'll hop on your back. I'll hop on the back of the quad with you.
Oh, I was like, bro, what does that mean? I can't put you on my glider.
Can I hop on your back while you glide me?
I was just making it funny.
Launch pad.
Funny, bro? Oh, wavy.
I got splashes.
Let's do it in the circle, bro. So just in case if we get some more damage, we're gonna be good when we get in the circle.
I'm landing on 2 kids.
Oh no.
3 kids.
Are you changing your mind or you're still gonna do it?
Oh, considering I just got lasered and hit one of them for 80 head, I think I'm good. They're like all trash.
Where's the launch pad though?
I marked it, brother.
Oh, guys, it.
They're all emoting on me. They're like, okay, the
Don't worry. Where's the team? I want to go with them. That's why.
Just like, they're bots.
Okay.
No, bro, I got lasers by all 3 of them at the same time. You're the one that fucking called, fucking bitch.
Yeah, I would have been.
Yeah, that one's at 8. That one's at like 20 health. We're not battling them.
Oh man, I got one of them.
What the? I got 1 combat.
They're probably low.
Okay.
Alrighty, buddy.
I had like no other option but to fight him. I was that low.
I had no mats.
Apparently combats are better for your skill. Shot by 2 different directions.
Yo boys, I'm gonna go some drink. I'll be back in like 30 seconds. Stupid.
And I tell Raptor that
Why'd my man leave?
He said he was going to sleep.
Strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Blood on the leaves.
I just need to clear my mind now. It's been racing since the summertime. Now I'm holding down the summer now. And all I want is what I can't buy now. Cause I ain't got the money on me right now. And I told you to wait. Yeah, I told you to wait. So I'ma need a little more time now. Cause I ain't got the money on me right now. And I thought you could wait. Yeah, I thought you could wait. These bitches surrounding me. Oh, want something now, man. Then they talk about me. Would be lost without me. We could have been somebody. Thought you'd be different about it. Now I know you not it. So let's get on with it. We could have been somebody. Said you had to tell somebody. Let's take it back to the first party. When you tried your first Molly. It came out of your body. It came out of your body. Running naked down the lobby. And you were screaming that you love me. Before the limelight told ya. Before the limelight stole ya. Remember we were so young. When I will hold ya. Before the blood. I know you need.
Strange fruit
Something strange happening.
from the poplar trees. From the poplar trees.
You could have been somebody. We could have been somebody. Was it on the first party? When we tried our first Molly. It came out of our body. It came out of our body. Yeah. Before they call lawyers. Before you tried to destroy us. How you gon' lie to the lawyer? It's like I don't even know ya. I gotta bring it back to the know ya. Fuck them other niggas cause I'm down with my niggas. Fuck them other niggas cause I'm down with my niggas. Fuck them other niggas cause I'm down with my niggas. I ride with my niggas, I die for mine.
That was good, bro.
Dog, on my second string bitches. Try and get a baby, try and get a baby. Now he talking crazy. I don't give a damn if you used to talk to Jay-Z. He ain't with you, if Beyonce need to stop acting lazy. She Instagram herself like bad bitch alert. He Instagram his watch like mad rich alert. He only wanna see that ass in reverse. $2,000 bag with no cash in your purse. Now you sitting courtside, wifey on the other side. Gotta keep them separated, I call that apartheid. Then she said she pregnated, that's the night your heart died. Then you gotta go into your girl and report that. Main reason cause your pastor said you can't afford that. Now your driver say that new Benz, you can't afford that. All that cocaine on the table, you can't snort that. That going to that, all that money that the court got. On and on the Alamo.
Whoa, why does it say Team Rumble?
Got someone fucking doing those and then left.
Oh. Asshole.
I'm back. Oh shoot. Wait. Why are we playing Team Rumble?
Yeah, you gotta change it. No, we can't play. Oh, okay. Good shit. Nice. First try.
I can get ready. That'd be amazing. I think you can. Okay, boys, I gotta get off. I'll be back on like 30 minutes, okay?
Okay, are you gonna play this game?
I can't.
You can or cannot?
I can't.
Alright. Alright.
Oh yeah.
Oh wait, bro, hold on. Don't die.
You're the renegade.
Oh no. Somebody here too. Gotta ice him first.
That was a renegade that just killed us. I had no gun.
Oh man, two of them. Everybody's gone. Damn. And our thing won't fill. Gonna add me, bro? I invite you to a different party. Alright. Hey, what's up, bro?
Trail descent. Damn, it says you're not accepting requests.
I don't know why. Yeah, I can't invite you either. You should send a request to my PlayStation account. RAHAT 604. I'll get you later, but let's just play for now. Whatever.
I use an. I tried to friend you on Epic. Fuck.
It's kind of weird how my Epic is.
Okay, it goes to promote, add friend, add PlayStation friend, new profile. I hit add friend.
Yeah, you could add me on PlayStation. And like when I add you on my PlayStation, I could add you as my Epic friend from there.
Okay.
It's RAHAT 604.
Yeah, just look it up. Give me a second one.
Fuck it. I ain't even counting money no more. If it ain't right, it ain't right. It don't even matter no more. Come here up a little bit. Next level. Kudo Bugatti Coupe. I call it Katy Perry. Wiz Khalifa paper smoking my berries. 65. I call it Rihanna. It got a red top, but it's white like Madonna. You hear what I said? Having a slumber party, all my bitches count bread. Also known as Superhead from Superhead, and I really will. California motivation in my pocket. Got on my
Go down the road. There you go.
Down.
What type of PC do you use?
Say it again.
What type of PC do you use?
Hold on. It's not mine. It's my brother. Let me ask.
Go buy it. What kind of PC you got?
Hey, what's the specs? It's a cyber power PC.
I've been trying to get a PC, and
Hold on, what you say, Rod? i5 CPU and a 1060 NVIDIA GeForce. He paid around like 1300 for all that.
I've been looking to get a PC.
Word. It's pretty cool playing controller PC because I still play with controller though.
Yeah, I want it switch over.
You want to switch to keyboard?
No, I don't want to switch over.
Oh, okay. My brother does that though. He used to play on this game. I'm just always used to playing with like PlayStation controller.
I'm really
I can't
good when it
change.
comes to playing controller because you know FaceWave.
What?
You know FaceWave. You know the controller player FaceWave.
Yeah.
Well, I can do every single high ground retake he could do, except one.
Which one? The one with the triangles?
No, it's where you put a pyramid of 4 in front of you. You double edit the left and the right 2 squares at the right moment, and then you have to put a ramp off of that side.
And then he makes a stair basically, right? To pop out to the side.
He puts a stair 4 in a stair, edit the 4 to go through.
Yeah, I know you know.
And we could go in creative after this and down. I'm still working. I can kind of do it now, but I just can't do it proficiently in a build fight. So did people come here?
I don't see anybody, bro. But because that I'm playing on PC, that means you guys can play anybody that plays PC.
I know.
So you
I've
gotta.
been playing PC servers all day, actually.
Okay. Cause like some of my friends don't play with me anymore because like they hate getting smacked, and I get smacked too. But like eventually it's gonna get better.
Really?
That's all I get it.
That doesn't really show that two. I'll be honest, in my opinion, not two good friends.
Say it again.
In my opinion, just in my general opinion, that's not two good of friends if they're not willing to play with each
Bro, I agree. 100% agree with you, bro. I don't want to call them that.
But I mean, I can kind of understand at the same time at their point. They don't want to get shit on.
Yeah, word. Like they want to have fun. They want to get some kills. You know, have great games. Like sometimes it's not really fun when like people just come and just like rain on your parade, put 17 kills in the game, and like they took out your whole squad and it's one person by himself. That shit crazy.
You know, I got choked. I totally get it. I get from both of your guys' perspectives.
Yeah. So I don't try to judge. You know.
Yeah. In general, like I'm a very judgmental person. Like, it's very hard to impress me to make me like fully like you to enjoy playing with you.
I feel you.
You seem like a really nice person, like, genuinely. I feel like that you're someone type of person to like give all the money away to a homeless person.
Who, me?
Just because they feel like it, yeah. Like, I just get that feeling.
You really, I think you actually got me. I really am like that, bro. That's funny.
You seem like I'm a very good, I'm a really good person.
You're a really good what?
Really good person. I've always had that kind of.
Oh, I feel you. I feel like I used to think I was like that, but like now, like with like a couple of experiences in my life, I feel like nah, I'm too trusting of people. But you know, like you live and you learn.
Yeah, yeah. You seem really nice.
But you know what happens to nice guys? They get cheated on. Just kidding.
Hell, I already know about the
You know?
Nice guys always finish last in the end.
Yeah, they always finish last. When you wanna bag a girl, curve her. That's the way.
Can't be too nice, can't be too mean.
Or
I'll be right in that middle. But in general, like I really, no homo. I like you.
oh, bro, thank you very much, bro. I think you're a very chill person, bro. I'm enjoying the conversation.
Here's 4 minis right here. Yo, circle is gonna be actually right in front of us. Circle's gonna end up ending like if I get a circle, I can probably tell exactly where we're gonna next. As a new sniper.
Yo, I got a big pot here.
I already got 3.
Okay, cool.
There's 4 minis back there.
Alright, what's your market, bro? Hold on, I'm gonna pull up right now.
There's another big pot right here.
What's your IG, bro?
My IG?
Your Instagram. Oh, there's a medkit here.
Sorry, I'm dumb. It's actually my name, just with YT in the end.
Okay, hold on.
I've recently started a YouTube and I'm trying to kind of...
No, I respect it, bro. And I just recently started Twitch. But like, it's kind of hard because like, I'm not like fucking nice. So like, it's kind of hard to like, really build. But like, you know, it's gonna take time. It's like my hobby. It's not really like, not like my job. It's just like my hobby.
Like, once I get a PC, I'm tempted to try to like, go.
Yeah, facts, bro. The only reason I play is cause. Oh, I see. That's why you try to play creative. I only play squads. I really like squads. I like playing with a bunch of people, coordinating, taking down other teams. I think that's really cool. That's like Call of Duty but better because Fortnite lets you do everything you want to do in a game.
I like the building that.
Oh, somebody shot.
I just got sniped in the back of the head.
Where you at?
Right by you. There's a whole team in the storm. Are you serious?
Drop down, drop down.
I can't. You're gonna have to break me down.
Yes. Yeah, we need that fourth person though, for sure. It's gonna be pretty difficult without our number 4 because of this lobby. But still, I believe in us. Hold on, I'm gonna add you, bro, just because I like your vibes. What's your Instagram?
My Instagram, like I said, is my name, just YT in the end. Bleed894. YT.
How old are you?
I am 14.
There you go.
All lowercase.
I got you.
Everything's lowercase.
It's an anime guy in the picture. I don't know who this is. It looks like Light Yagami.
Light Yagami from.
I'm almost done. I'm going on.
That's
what I do. Just give you a follow, bro.
Appreciate it. Got you.
You seem like a nice person.
You seem a lot nicer.
Let me see.
I try to be nice, but I just give this vibe to everyone else. I'm a bad person.
I feel like
literally.
I feel like you gotta be what you want to see, you know? Like, get the right foot forward.
And tell me why does my heart burn when I see your face? You have made your decision, put me in my place, and the lies you've been hiding, taking up your space. Tell me why does my heart burn this way when I see your face?
Oh yeah, I forgot we need to get another person in here.
Yeah, we do.
Here, I can invite some people.
Keep trying though. Yeah, invite people if you like.
Never mind.
No, it's okay, next game. Let's slay out this game. Let's do like a hot drop and try to slay out.
That's the case. We probably land together so we can back each other up.
Right here. Oh, you wanna go to Pleasant? Pick one. Let's do Pleasant. No, I don't Pleasant. You don't like Pleasant? Okay, let's do Block then.
I haven't went to Block either, so I'm gonna be real duty.
So you think you can have a better shot in Pleasant?
No, I hate Pleasant. It's such a from just the area. It's terrible for the fact that it's not gonna really nobody gets good loot from there. You might get like one good weapon out of the whole thing.
I feel you, but I think like I like houses. I like the house setup because I know all the house like designs, almost all of them. So like, it's easy to loot for me.
My fucking controller died. No way.
No way. Well,
yeah.
Still, make sure that you don't go to the water and you're good.
I made it happen. I got half.
Okay, I'm gonna land with my boy then. Be safe.
People go there.
Fuck.
Your skill is just better. Probably. I guess you had no gun.
No gun, bro. No gun. Oh, he's about to ice me right now. Get his kill. Alright.
This is a big part of my fault.
My teammate Wavy is all good. Yo, the skin that he's wearing is the only reason why I would get the battle pass. The Demi?
Red.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Only reason why. The other ones are stupid. It's alright, bro.
Same
It's
guy
alright.
won't pump me.
Same guy? Yo, people are skilled in PC, bro.
Yes. Yeah, this guy's solo squatting too. I'm actually mad.
Let's see, you guys have an invite?
I could see. Every time I try to invite someone, it just pops up join party.
Champagne to my enemies.
Alright, let's see if I got anyone. I got Sweaty Nerd to invite.
Doesn't matter. I don't judge.
No, literally, Sweaty Nerd's his name.
Oh, okay.
Sweaty Nerd 420. Friends on, but I don't think he's gonna join because he's asleep. Nukes, moderating. I've invited everyone that would even possibly join.
El negocio socio. De día y de noche me llama. Que quiere de nuevo en mi cama. No fue suficiente una vez. Ahora de día y de noche reclama. Cúcaro más cara de que fue. Ya me tienes contra la pared. Pide una vez, pide dos, pide tres. Otra vez llegamos hasta 10. Cúcaro más cara de que fue. Ya me tienes contra la pared. Pide una vez, pide dos, pide tres. Otra vez llegamos hasta 10.
Fire to the thing when me give her one time. She loving it so much she a bit pants feed all. I dem a meet and me give her 2 times. That's how when me start see the girl I get wild. 3 times me give her the wickedest one. She loving that style and she love the profile. 4 times me give her that grind. Say break the local hoes in her mind.
Who's going, brothers?
Oh my god, I just accidentally jumped by picking up my controller. Did I guess? That was my fault, 100%.
Look good.
And I literally went to pick up my controller and I just hit X on accident.
I wonder what they're gonna do for tomorrow's Fortnite anniversary.
Oh, I know there's gonna be another. What's it called? Another.
I know.
Cup, there's gonna be another World Cup skin coming out.
Oh, word. I didn't really like the ones that came out so far.
Yeah, it's the fish stick one. It's gonna look
that one is fire. I'm definitely gonna get the fish stick skin because they have 3 colors for it for $12, I'm getting it for sure.
I got scoped AR. I'm just.
I like that gun. HD uses that gun. I like it.
I suck with it. I hit. I mean, I don't hit. I miss.
It's fun. Got people?
Nope. I got a whole scoped AR and nothing else. Oh, I got burst SMG. Sick ball. Let's break it. What breaks it? I guess I'm max.
Yeah, I got you. Hold on, I got more.
I'm gonna. It's okay, one of those.
Oh, I got traps for every one of you guys. I got 1 trap each. One.
Go to traps.
I'll give it to my boy then. Look at him. Oh. Let's go fuck these guys up. Come on. They're by that res van, I'm pretty sure.
Easy. Watch this. I'm gonna make this go AR overpowered. I'm not gonna miss a shot. 100%. I have aimbot right now. I don't think you're ready. Yeah, they're going for a reboot.
Yeah, I thought so.
Their guy's weak.
He's in the back, he's in the back, I see him. They're going to loot lake, let's chase them.
Here, no, there's 2 guys on left center.
Okay. There's 2 guys that left on the... But I'm coming to you. Get an AR. I hear him, he's downstairs under us.
Nice.
Got him?
Oh, grenade. This is Carter.
Oh, let him come here.
I'm up on top of the building.
Okay, do you think?
I think it's a purple skull. Yeah, it's a purple skull.
Okay, let him come.
Knock him.
There's a YouTube guy. Oh. That's it? No, we got one more, right?
Yeah.
Where's he at? Fuck.
If I don't I'm gonna just
Oh, good shot, bro. Good shot. I got minis for you. Oh no, you don't need it. Yeah, we gotta get him some health. We gotta get our boy some health though.
Yeah, I got bandages on me.
Yeah, give it a SV.
Let's go, baby.
Okay, I need a gun. Deagle works.
Wait, you still have the gun?
I'm fine now.
Okay, I was about to say, like, yo, I have Twitchy max almost everything. I have.
Is that a flint? No, I want a flint.
Yeah, I love flintlocks. You guys need here. Come to me if you need mass or anything.
Is the new double pump? Got some of me? Oh, wavy. We're good. Let's go. Get the...
Yo, there's 200 brick right here. Over 200 actually. I'm just gonna crank 90s. Hit them with the free builds on them. Alright, now let's rush those people in
loot?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Hopefully
they're not too nice.
Yeah, they're still there. They're fighting. They just got some people got rebooted.
Alright. That's third party. Play it smart.
bro. I'm at.
Oh, he's right here. He's right here. He's in the box. He's in the box with me. Nice, nice, nice. Good move. Oh, good move. Good move, boy. Let him come in. Let his boy come in. I drop down. It's just you, bro. Take your time. Do what you gotta do. Yeah, he's by us.
No way.
Hit the one. Yeah, you might as well just get the cards. He's on you. Or 2 people. That's wing.
How
Yo,
do they know?
the World Cup fish stick skin is fire. I feel like they made that for Mr. Savage and Benji Fish.
Who is Benji Fish?
Seriously, you don't know what that is?
I've heard about him, but I've never.
You know who Mr. Savage is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's his duo partner. It's pretty good. He's a little kid though. He's your age. He's exactly your age.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
14.
On the money.
Wow, say I'm a little kid.
You are young. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. You could be mature, but you're young. You're younger than my brother. That don't mean I don't respect you. Be right back.
And how?
Try to invite somebody if you can.
Alright. Oh, I just said join someone. Oh, okay.
You guys want to go to my favorite location?
What?
That's my favorite location.
Lucky Landing. My favorite is Lazy Lagoon.
Oh, I like lazy. I like lazy heavy. I like the ship.
Yeah, I like the ship.
So I'm assuming you use like face sway settings?
I use my own personal settings.
What do you use?
I customize
for your sense.
custom settings.
What? Me
I have a
too,
lot of
bro.
custom settings.
Almost everything I have is custom.
Yeah, my traps is custom. It's double click R stick for custom settings for traps.
That makes sense.
Down on the D-pad, my pickaxe.
Okay. So what did you make your triangle edit?
Triangle is my build.
Oh, circles your edit?
Circle, I have 2 edits actually. I have L stick and right on the D-pad.
Okay, I used to do that. That's what I played with first. I had left edit, and I had switch mode on circle. I used to do that.
Yeah, I have a lot, and I have a lot of my personal custom.
What's your sensitivity?
I don't really recommend my sense for a lot of people because it's pretty fast.
What you got?
But oh. How do we always land here? Me and this one guy, whoever he is, we keep landing at the exact same spot. Can I at least have a slurp?
Maybe you guys are like great minds.
We keep landing on the exact same gun, and every time I get it, I give it to him. That's the blue AR.
That's love.
I gave him the tag. I just got the blue AR because I was trying to beam people.
Nah, he's a good teammate. Like, I like that about him.
Yeah, I mean, if I want to win and protect them, then
Oh yeah, so what you're saying, what's your sense? Is it 9?
oh, it's here. It's the first X is 850,
I got the same thing.
and then the Y sense is 779.
I got 881313 on the targeting.
I've tried that. I don't know. I feel like the bottom one, it needs to be a little extra faster.
I feel you.
When it comes to like beaming people, like when you're up in the face, I don't miss a shot.
Oh, I see, because your thing's a little slower. Hold on, yours is. Oh, hold on, let me see. If mine's is. Hold on, what did you make? What did you make lower? Your X and Y, or?
Yeah, my X is lower.
Because. How come? Explain why.
I don't know. Just, I've customized it, and I just feel like I aim my shots a little bit better. You know whistles?
No, is that a Fortniter?
Yeah. He's the one person that beat Phase Way.
I'm gonna check him out.
He's the.
Let me try. I'm gonna try your setting. Let me see it. So what you do with the X? You make it a little lower.
X here.
X is a 7.7.
X is at 550. I mean 850. I'm dumb. 850.
Uh-huh.
And then Y is 779.
I'll try it. I'll do 7.8. Let's see how it looks. And what you targeting?
Oh my! You want my targeting sense too? Make sure you write down your own things so you don't forget it.
Nah, I already know mine. I always try different people's ones. I think they're interesting to see, like, there's so many options.
My wireless targeting setting is 230 and 300.
And 1800. Oh, okay. I have 1313. They're very similar. Go, boys.
Just I hit my shot, my flicks really well.
Your word. I
Especially
got you.
shots.
Oh, because of that little change?
Hmm?
Oh, I see. Because your Y is a little slower. So I see what you're saying.
Jump shots is just.
Yo,
My jump
I'm about to run into trouble. I feel it.
Okay, I'm running up towards you. There's no one grabbed that airdrop there. There might not be people. Yeah.
No, there's people here. There's people on Fatal. Chest looted.
Here, I can't carry that. I'm gonna rush him real quick. As long as I have mats and a decent shotgun, I typically win most of my fights.
What do you got? What shotgun you got?
Great tack.
Oh, I see them. They're down here.
How many?
Oh, I count 2.
Are they at the reboot end?
Mm-mm. I marked where they are. I don't like estimate my marks. I put them on the spot.
I don't even see your marker on my screen. Yo, if they were smart, they would go for
Right here. They're on the other supply drop. So get this one. Get the one by us.
If
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a better shotgun, you mind if I have it?
Yeah, 100%, bro. Oh, they're here. They're here. They're here.
One shield off.
I'm coming to the roof. Give me a sec.
The guy up here, he had a shot above the shield. Why is that guy finishing me? You're in the middle of a fight.
Fuck. I switched to the wrong gun.
If he finishes you, just pop the chug.
I think he should pop the shot. GG, boys. It's a little frustrating.
You don't have to go to creative though.
Were you? That's what you want to do?
Yeah, honestly, pubs has kind of triggered me a little bit. And we don't have a fourth, so.
What I could do? Let's play one more. Let's do one more.
I ain't staying long, just for me to warm up a couple buildings. Because my building is not the greatest right now. I haven't warmed up.
I got you, bro. Okay. You're right. You know why I stopped having my edit on 2 buttons?
How come?
Sometimes I mix like my speeds are different for the both of them. So I was like, yo, then it's not gonna be finessed if it's not on the same button. That's the only reason I changed it. You feel what I'm saying?
What's your confirm?
Circle, and my edit is square.
Square. You play ball?
What?
You play ball?
Nah, I play with Scuff.
How do you play with Scuff? Do you use the paddles?
Yeah, that's why I can fuck with it.
Alright, I have paddles too. So I don't use them. I play half ball.
Bro, use the paddles.
I do use them every.
The paddles are straight, bro. It took me like at least 3 months to get used to it, but like the paddles are straight.
Do you use it to jump and edit?
Jump, edit, next weapon, and the other one is switch mode.
Ah, so you have a you use an Xbox controller or
PlayStation?
Alright. So you use Storm or something like that?
Say it again?
Storm, there's a Storm Elite controller.
I don't know what that is. I have a Elite or something with 4 paddles.
Yeah.
Not like that. It was like $180, I think.
It was only 80?
180.
Okay, that's what I was saying. Like, it's only 80.
Yeah, you're like, I'm getting it too, bro. Damn, we land in the same place? Oh no, it's kind of close. Not the exact way, though.
Okay. I don't like that gun.
Ew. Whatever. Beggars can't be choosers.
That's more for your life. Let's go, baby. Up on phone.
Okay, heavy, nice. I got a mini for somebody.
I got a chug.
Fantastic. So I got it for my boy.
What do you feel that's better, PlayStation or?
Yo, I just found a gold tag. What you think is better? You said?
Yeah. Which
What
one
you
do you
asked
think is better, PlayStation or Xbox?
That's an easy answer, bro. I'm a PlayStation guy. Free internet, you don't have to pay for that. Come on, that's an easy answer.
Sorry, I just noticed that our teammates on Xbox, and I was like,
That's all good. But like Xbox players are nasty though.
oh yeah.
I just don't like that you have a battery pack that can like die. That shit sucks. And like, yo, bro, I had at least 5 to 6 Xboxes, and they all got red rings, bro. And I'm not gassing you when I say 5 to 6. I had a lot of Xboxes, 360s, and then I was like, I'm not getting the next one. I was like, this is
I
tough.
ain't judging. I grew up on Xbox. I played Xbox for a good damn while. My brothers broke my Xbox One. Then I had to stop playing Xbox for a good while. I had to stop playing on console for a while. I had to play like on a phone and stuff and play games on that. So, but recently, like right around the time Season 4 came out, I got a PlayStation. I could have placed it, the other people on it.
People on you. No, I got a sniper. Don't shoot yet. Let me get a shot first. Oh, I see him. They're the soccer field. Oh, the soccer field. They're over here. I see them.
Yeah, I'm about to get up close and personal.
I'm gonna get a shot on him right now. Oh man, I tried to get his toes and missed.
Knock your shield off.
Let's kill the same people, guys. Make sure you kill the same people.
Knocked one. Why are you so like quick to finish? Why are you so do that? You're only getting advantage.
Damn. They killed us with that storm, bro. They literally killed us with the storm. Ridiculous. Yo. Bro, I'm gonna get on my PlayStation.
Okay.
Add me. Rahat604. I'm gonna play with y'all when I get on my PlayStation.
Here, first tell me how to spell that, cause I have a
R-A.
spelling.
R-A. H-A.
Actual in the lower screen.
Okay. Ra, R-A, and then hat. 604.
I'm still always.
Alright, it's okay.
Alright, here, just spell it out for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna type it to you. Hold on. I'm not even gonna do that. Right there. My PlayStation. I'll be back later, guys. Like, give me like 10 minutes. I'll be on. You guys can do creative or whatever y'all want to do, but then we can do Phil.
Peace.